What's up, gamers? Kubes here. As you might have put together by the thumbnail and the title of this video, we're going to be taking a look at Mound-maker Urza today. Urza is one of my very first invaders, so definitely have a special place in my heart for this character. It's a strength build, and so along with that we're going to be talking today about one of my favorite level ranges to invade at. Sometimes that might be, as a fellow invader, it might be a question that you have, is like, what's a good level range to invade at? Where am I going to get some good fights that don't feel like I get absolutely destroyed by the first thing that hits me? And I found that level 88, so that range of like level 80, if you will, seems like a really good and fun place to invade. You get a nice mix of people who are just trying to play through the level. Sometimes you'll get some password summoned phantoms that you have to deal with, but for the most part it feels like you get good fights at this level range. Things don't, obliterate you in one hit, and you can really kind of focus on, getting better at invading, and also have fun fights that are, fulfilling, rewarding, whatever it might be for you. So I have 3 characters that are all at level 88. 88 will invade downwards to level 80, I believe, and it'll invade upwards to about level 110. So you'll kind of stay out of that 125 meta range in this instance. And then as far as weapons, I'm using plus 15 standard weapons and plus 6 somber weapons, and that will invade downwards to plus 12, I believe, and probably upwards to about plus 18. And so with the somber, I think it's like 5 to 7 or something like that. I could be off with the somber, but pretty sure about the standard weapons. And I've went to this particular level range and weapon upgrade range because when you're playing through the game, it seems like by the time that you get to the Altus Plateau, you'll have a character who's about level 80 or so, and if you travel through the ruin-strewn precipice in order to reach the Altus Plateau rather than using the Dectus lift, if you travel through that area, they give you enough smithing stones inside of that dungeon, if you will. They give you enough smithing stones to upgrade your weapon to plus 12. And there might even be 2 of the plus 5 smithing stones in there as well that would get a player to plus 13. So it's kind of calculated in that sense that it's like, this seems like the right level range for the weapons as well as the character level for the sort of invasions that I'm looking to have. I really enjoy invading in the Altus Plateau. I think there's a lot of really great areas there. Sometimes you'll get some invasions, out in Caelid, and you can get some nice invasions here in Liurnia. Just a good range of things. It doesn't feel like the fights are unfair or unbalanced when you are, taking on multiple opponents. And so that's just been one of my favorite places to invade at. Like I mentioned, I've got 3 separate characters all at this range, and so I'll show off the other characters in some upcoming videos. But let's talk a little bit about Mound-maker Urza. So the Mound-makers were a covenant in Dark Souls 3. I'm not going to pretend like I was there for it. I kind of missed out on the Dark Souls 3 PvP, and have really only gotten into invasions pretty seriously with the release of Elden Ring. And so the Mound-makers, though, they were this like weird covenant where I guess you could invade into a world, but then you could also, if you chose to, you could help the host. And so you could take on the enemies and help them get through the level to the next bonfire, or you could, be a standard invader who's just there to be the enemy. You could maybe face off against other invaders if you chose to, and really kind of like the whole idea in my mind is that they're just kind of like people who have lost their sanity, and they just really are like you know, one invasion might be a good day where they're feeling like they just want to help somebody out, and the next one they just want to kill everybody that they see. And so I kind of like that idea. I've got another character named Unkindled Coral who uses the host trick mirror so that he can look like a sunbro, and he's more so focused on trying to trick the party into believing that he's friendly. He wants to be friendly, but oftentimes the host and their sunbros will know that he's not there to help them, and so he has to, he's got to fight to survive. But he ideally would like to be a sunbro who forces himself into the host's world. But Mound-maker Urza is a little bit different, where it's like I'll come in and really kind of base my experience on the reaction from the party. If people are quite passive, or maybe they appreciate that I'm not running in head first to just obliterate them as an invader, then I can have a nice interaction. And maybe if a fellow invader came in and they saw that I was orange and they wanted to attack me, then they would be fully within their rights to do so. I don't look like a red person, so that's on me. This shout out to this rat. This rat is going to be the MVP of this fight. But so having a character, it's like, what sort of character quirks can I have for someone like Mound-maker Urza? You might have noticed by now in the background footage that Urza doesn't like two things. The first being wizards, and the second thing being blues. Those awful blues. And so this, there's a little bit of that happening here. Also, with these big strength weapons, it's important to understand hyper armor. If you're going to have a big weapon like this, I don't have particularly high poise with this character. I think I've got about 55 poise, which will allow you to poise through like a straight sword attack or something like that. Some really small weapons. Nice jump. That was awesome. This felt really cool to pull off. And so with that in mind, it's like you don't necessarily have to have 101 poise to tank it through an attack. If you're charging up your R2 and doing a big heavy attack, oftentimes it will be enough to poise through the attacks that you're withstanding. This guy here, I'm like, oh, okay, he's running away because I just showed up, and he doesn't, he's gonna go back to wherever his friend is maybe. And then I realize that he's just left his friend to die. Just look at this. He's just like, I'm out of there, man. He's not dealing with that. He was hoping his friend could kill the boss, maybe, I don't know. But here he is. He's snuck back up on me. He's noticed that I was here. And what do we got? We've got the Rivers of Blood. So there are more ways to handle Rivers of Blood than just parrying, gamers. That's as important to know as well. Big heavy attack will just stop it right dead in its tracks. Unless they've got really high poise, which, at level 88, there's oftentimes that they probably won't. But just interrupt that thing. Just hit them with a big slam, and then they're going to start respecting the fact that they can't just use their win button all the time. So having a character who has these sort of character quirks of not liking wizards and not liking blues, it's like those are the sorts of things that I'm keeping in mind as I'm invading, right? So even though I might, like the idea of being a mound maker is that I can invade and I can, however I'm feeling it can drive the experience. Maybe I'm feeling friendly. Sometimes I'll just come into an invasion, and if the party doesn't attack me right away, then I'll do something silly, like I'll drop some runes, or I'll drop some boiled crab. I like dropping boiled crab for people. And then I'll just, sever out of the world. It's like a little interaction that happens. But again, if they come in and they just want to fight, then I'm prepared for that. And I'm looking for that oftentimes. But sometimes you can have those sort of fun, laid-back invasions where it's just a little bit of a different experience that maybe the host and his party can remember, instead of just constantly, fending off the invaders. In this one, you might have noticed there, we've got a co-invader, and right when they saw us, they you know, came charging in, and he hits me. And that's, yeah, totally, you know, I'm orange, or yellow, whatever color you want to call this. And so if he doesn't know that I'm also there invading, then he's going to hit me, and that's not his fault. I've got to take the responsibility for that one, right? And so knowing that, like, don't get upset if you're trying to have like a lore character and then the red comes in and they don't understand. You know, it's not their job to understand. They're just there to take on who they're taking on. Here again, we've got the blue who shows up. What did we learn from that host in the very beginning? They're totally okay with letting their friends die. Like they were okay with letting their password summon phantom die to that boss. They were just going to run away. So this blue has got very little chance. He's surrounded by all these marionettes and avionet soldiers. He's got 2 invaders trying to take him on. He's got no chance. But that host is like, I'm just worried about me. I'm going to stay alive. And now he's got to deal with the 2 invaders that are going to come running after him. So treat people the way that you want to be treated, I think, is maybe the message that we could get from that one. It's like, hey, would you want the blue who showed up to help you, to rescue you? Did you know that it says that when you are being summoned as a blue, it says you've been summoned to rescue, for rescue? A host is summoning you to rescue them. So this guy is coming into your world to rescue you, and you treat him like that? That's just, oh man, I can't imagine. I feel like if I was a blue, I would probably quit after an experience like that. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about strength build. This guy here, Frogman, this was awesome. This was just a really great fun fight, so I wanted to keep him in the video. I can tell right away that this guy knows what he's doing. Look at this. He's roll catching after roll catch. He knows what he's doing with his weapon. He's got a cool, fun character. You can't see him, but they are fighting the what's it guy? The Blackblade Kindred, maybe, that's here in the Forbidden Lands or Forbidden Pathway to get to the Mountaintops of Giants. So for some reason the boss is completely invisible on my screen, but this Sunbro, this Phantom, is like, he's like fully committed to fighting me as the invader. And maybe that's not the most optimal decision on his part, because maybe that boss could end up killing his host while we're having our fight, but he is like, he's giving it his all. This was a really great fight. And so again, I appreciate this from the standpoint of being able to practice and being able to get better. And not every fight that I get into is like flawlessly executed. There's definitely a handful of blunders that occur during this fight. Like right here, for example, I like literally walk right into his lightning slash, and I know how that move works, so I should know, oh, that's what's coming, and then it's going to be followed by a lightning strike coming down, and I just kind of, in the moment, I forget that. But I don't let that, you know, change my mindset. I don't let that, the sort of like errors or mistakes that might occur during an evasion, change my overall perspective, because if I do that, then I'm going to start panicking. I'm going to start maybe getting a little bit tilted, which it happens to all of us. We're all human, right? Sometimes something happens and you're like, oh, how did I fall for that? That was so silly. But, you know, just again, taking it a bit at a time. Here, this is when I really kind of notice, okay, that boss has got to be around here. Either that or I've got some really bad lag happening, and it didn't feel that way throughout that whole fight. So I kind of catch on to the fact that there's a invisible boss in the area that he's also fending off. And so again, just respect to this gamer. Cool character, good fight. GG's to you, Frogman. And with that in mind, I think let's all appreciate the cool characters that are out there. You know, sometimes you come up against a character whose name is just like Dan, and they're a wizard, and nobody likes wizards, especially Mound-maker Urza. Or a blue whose name is like Hunter, and just super generic. But sometimes you get a cool character like Frogman that you get to take on, and that's a lot of fun. So enjoy those moments when they happen. And maybe you'll get invaded by a Mound-maker. And it's up to you how you take that on. Here's some numbers in the background for you. So again, level 88, I've got 50 vigor and I think I've got 50 strength, but I'm using the Star Scourge heirloom to get to that, and so I can swap out that talisman and it would take me down to 45 or so, as well as I'll kind of show you some of the weapons that I'm using here. Really love this Troll's Golden Sword. The Dragon Halberd, we showed that in the very beginning. We've got the Executioner's Great Axe. Urza's been featured in probably a couple of my videos, so maybe if you see some of the older videos, you'll see some of the weapons in action. But yeah, just a really good, fun build, strength build. I encourage you to hop out there and get in some invasions. This is Mound-maker Urza. I have been and always will be Kubz. Peace and love, gamers.